And everyone except Emma, and I'll do that in a minute. If you would please make sure that you're muted. And I'm really pleased that Emma is going to be able to spend some time with us today. She is a filmmaker with a focus on environmental and culture in Louisiana. And she has won awards on several of those films, including Finding Common Ground and In the Blind. And also in her award repertoire, she is the 2019 Louisiana Wildlife Federation Conservation Educator of the Year. And of course, she is a member of the New Orleans chapter of the Louisiana Master Naturalist and currently employed with the Institute of Environmental Conservation at Loyola. And fun thing is that she also leads swamp tours. Sounds like something we might want to sign up for. So thank you, Emma, for leading our program tonight. And I will turn it over to you.
Great. That was a nice introduction. Thank you. One thing, I'm not employed at Loyola. I'm employed by Louisiana Public Broadcasting.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. Yeah. Gotcha.
No problem. So I'm in Baton Rouge right now. I'm in Beauregard town. I moved here about a year and a half ago. So very in between New Orleans and here right now. All right, so I may be different than some of your other speakers because I'm not really presenting any science or anything, but I am a big naturalist. And I was thinking I would just talk a little bit about how I got into film and doing different types of environmental film and just becoming a naturalist in the first place. And I have some pictures, so I might just wait a little bit and then show a few at the end. So first, I'll say I moved to Louisiana in 2012 from Minneapolis, and I went to college at Loyola University, New Orleans. And at that time, obviously, had no idea what I wanted to do, but I took one class with Dr. Bob my freshman year and was just like, whoa. For Loyola, we do this this evening canoe trip that the environment program does, and it's in the Manchac Swamp. And I just remember the first time we went out, it was my first time really being in a swamp ever. And it just had this kind of magical feeling, and I was just totally hooked. And it's funny to fast forward now because the swamp tours that I was leading was with this company, New Orleans Kayak Swamp Tours, and we do that exact same route in the Manchac Swamp that you guys might be familiar with too, Shellbank Bayou. It is, it's right off the old Highway 51. It's a great little path to do. Just we go like a mile in and a mile out. Anyway, once I went on that trip, I just went fully into wanting to learn about wetland ecology. I studied environmental science at Loyola, and then realized I didn't want to get too into the biology side, but the math and physics and chemistry, I was kind of like, So I started getting a little bit into the communication side, and Dr. Bob Thomas had created this new minor, which was environmental communication. And I was like, that's perfect for me. And part of what we did with that, and which was my senior capstone, was working on this film called Finding Common Ground. And if you guys are interested in watching that, it is actually, I think the whole thing is on YouTube. If you type in Finding Common Ground Louisiana into your just into Google, it should come up. And that was, I started out as an intern on that, and then about 2 years later, when we actually finished it, I was in there as a producer. It was so it was Dr. Bob Thomas, Kevin McCaffrey, Lenny Delbert, and myself. And what Finding Common Ground was about was a perfect mix of communication strategies and science. It was all about how different stakeholders and different groups are working together and communicating to save the coast, but specifically it is focused on diversions. The river sediment diversions, and this came out about 5 years ago now. So at the time when we were making it was, we would tell people what we were doing this on, and they were like, good luck, because what sparked the idea for this documentary is Dr. Bob was at a meeting down in St. Bernard, where it was like a CPRA meeting.
There's a girl from that LPB special.
It was in St. Bernard, and all of the fishermen and everyone had 3 minutes to speak and say say how they felt about the diversions. And everyone there had these no diversion fans. Everyone was all riled up, and they call it the bloodletting because each person just went up and yelled, and there was confusion, and it was just what we thought was like the worst way for communication. So with the film, what we wanted to do was go out into the field with the scientists and with the fishermen and with Native Americans and all of these different groups, and really capture their story and put them all together and try to bring these groups together, usually over food, and using film as a way to build the trust, which we realized it all came down to trust for the most part. There's so much deep rooted mistrust between all of these groups. And for me, that was working on that was so powerful, because I was able to see actual change come through the filmmaking process, which I didn't expect to see. But by the end of that, somehow the scientists liked it and the fishermen liked it, because we kept it so unbiased and really showed all the different sides. And we were really surprised by how that worked out. So I kind of started to get into film after that. They made me a producer on that one, and that's one of the ones that won a Telly Award for us. I'm going to share my screen for a second. Oh. Just to show some pictures. Oh, okay.
Emma, I neglected to ask, would you prefer questions at the end, or would you prefer questions as they come up? And also, normally what at least I know our members are used to putting questions in the chat, and I can help monitor that.
Oh, yeah, no, questions throughout would actually, I think, be good.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just trying to, I'm trying to share my screen, and it's saying system preferences, security and privacy to grant access. Okay. For some reason, It is not letting me do that. Oh, wait, I figured it out.
I heard a click.
There was a click.
Right, when you click on share screen, you see some choices.
Oh, okay, got it.
There, that works.
Is that, oh no.
We're on, yep, you got it.
Okay. I don't really know how to go full screen, but can you guys see some of these? Okay. This is I spoke at Loyola to the students for Earth Week. So these are just some of the pictures I kept from that. This was that first paddle out in Manchac Swamp. This is also that first paddle. Here's a couple pictures in Belize. There's Bob, and there's me next to Bob, not doing quite as well as Bob and Emma are. A couple more in the Belize trip. That was a trip that was just so incredible. 2 weeks, 1 week in the coxcomb jungle, 1 week in a different jungle, and 1 week scuba diving. And scuba diving with Dr. Bob and Emma was pretty hilarious. I've never seen them that excited. This is a man named Popeye. He was our favorite character in Finding Common Ground. Dr. Bob and I on a boat. This is our whole team with Finding Common Ground. And I guess for the Loyola students, I assume that none of them really knew too much about the sediment diversion. So I wanted to show where the land loss was and where 2 of the sediment diversions are planned. And Mid-Barataria one that we spent a lot of time at. And I don't know if you guys are interested in seeing this. Someone at LPB created a graphic. Do you guys want, what do you guys, it's only 2 seconds. I guess I'll just play it. I would assume that most everyone in this group knows how sediment diversions work, but our graphics person made this for CPRA. I'm not sure if they've used it yet or how, but I just thought it looked pretty nice. And if you guys, I guess if you guys need to use it for anything, let me know. Oh, and the other major theme of Finding Common Ground was traditional ecological knowledge. At that meeting in St. Bernard, where everyone was yelling and screaming, we noticed some people saying some things that we realized were like, that actually makes a lot of sense. And it's not scientific, but it doesn't take any validity away from what they're saying at all. And traditional ecological knowledge was, I think they started using that term for, it was like native, indigenous knowledge. And it was, knowledge is often passed through stories and by people who are so deeply connected with the land. And what we were able to do, I don't know if you guys recognize in this picture, Matt Bethel. He's with Sea Grant at it's not LSU, Louisiana Sea Grant. And then this guy to the left of him is Bim Philippe. He's a Native American in Grand Bayou. And what they do is Matt was using this GIS mapping with the TEK of that Native American tribe to see where they think diversions or dredging or other sediment building would be most useful. And then they overlay that with where the coastal master plan has the diversions to be. So that's kind of an example of how we were using this TEK, not just of Native Americans, but also shrimpers, just all of that information that's so valuable. And we realized when you combine that with, with the real science, not the real science, with the more technical, quantifiable science, you can really find this great synergy and work together on solutions. So that was fun. Here's Popeye again. Dr. Gene Turner, he's some of you guys might know him. He's a sedimentologist and a professor at LSU. Here is me getting a crab trap stuck out from the motor on a chute. And this is like, I would say I'm still very much a Minnesota girl doing this stuff. And during our first time, we have, this is when I became a swamp tour guide. And then we take a big turn. I'm gonna maybe break out of my stop sharing. Oop.
Emma,
Sorry, I'm not very good at this.
Emma,
Yes.
why is diverting sediment so important?
So what I like to say, sorry, I'm going to try to get out of my sharing screen. Do you guys know what I pressed to get out of it? Oh, I see. Oh, okay. So basically, I think of how Louisiana was created in the first place. Over millennia, the Mississippi River has been snaking around, and every time, what the purpose of the delta is to push out all of that sediment that comes through the entire watershed, all 30 something states, I forget how many states lead into the Mississippi. But what it does is it would build this delta lobe, and then naturally would change course and build another delta lobe. And over these millennia of the river snaking around, that's how all South Louisiana was built. And that's for it to naturally, as a delta, if you don't keep getting this fresh supply of sediment, naturally you will start to sink. And since we built about over 100 years ago, we started building this levee system, which kept the river almost in a straitjacket. But what it really did is, it's like it cut the aorta, it cut the life supply that goes out into the delta. And so naturally, when you deprive all the land outside, it just slowly begins subsiding. And on top of that, we have all kinds of other issues that attribute to the subsidence and the sea. There's sea level rise. There's over 20,000 miles of canals. We have all these things working against keeping our land up, and diversions are they're still very controversial, and on this scale that they're proposed, we're not even positive they'll work. It's kind of like we're a lab rat, but the idea is to mimic Mother Nature and to open up the levee in these key spots and let all of that fresh water and that sediment start to build up the delta like it once was. While doing Finding Common Ground, it was pretty, we we couldn't even decide if it was a good idea or a bad idea because we'd go out with all of these fishermen and be like, ooh, I think this might just be devastating, so much fresh water just destroying all these plants and letting all these invasives out. And then we'd go with the scientists and be like, oh, well, seems like this is the only option. Like it's the only real thing left to do. And a lot of the people against diversions were all more for dredging, which we were, dredging is great. It's just it's very expensive and it's kind of like patchwork in a way. It's still just going to sink even though you keep building it up. That was a really long answer.
Emma, there was another question asking about jetties. What about jetties?
What's a jetty? I'm not an expert of any sort. Thomas, what are
the jetties are perpendicular to the, turn your thing off, Donna. Jetties are perpendicular to the levees and they speed up the river flow so that it carries the sediment out further.
Oh, I've heard about those. I don't really know too much about them though. Could you talk about them at all?
That's about all I know about them.
Oh, okay. So do they go along?
It's typically a rock formation that they do. I mean, if you look down the Grand Isle, for example, they run them along the Back Bay side, and then they also it's designed to break the water flow, the storm surge.
Like the terraces?
Well,
similar, yes.
Okay.
But if you go like in Grand Isle, for example, if you run out of Caminata Pass, right under the bridge, you come out. There's a whole line of rock formation, and that's jetties, and they build them up with, like large boulders, and it breaks the water from coming in, and it slows the flow down. It creates kind of a harbor effect.
Okay.
Well, in the river, what the purpose is to prevent the buildup of sandbars in the river. It speeds up the river flow, and it carries a lot of the sediment out into the Gulf. That's what that does. And he's right. It's mainly rocks that are perpendicular to the levees.
Nice.
Make good fishing.
Yep. Yeah, great for fishing.
I would imagine so.
Emma, I have a question. This is and I don't mean to interrupt your program if you're still rolling, but
yeah, no.
How were the fishermen? Because I've done some stuff with like crab trap removal, like derelict crab trap removal and stuff, and I've had extreme pushback. And the fact that you were able to communicate with these guys is brilliant. I think it's great, and we need more of that. We need kind of more communication between the scientific community and the real life community, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Real life community. I'm talking about people that make a living doing what they do, and they look sometimes at us as naturalists or sometimes at people as scientists, and they go, "Well, you don't get what we deal with every day." There's this like fine line. So I'm dying to watch. I wrote it down because I'm dying to watch your video. So how did you come about communicating with these people?
Well, what we found was just to totally let them, like, we're here for your story. We want to hear your side. And it was just like it was the complete opposite of when you have this public meeting and everyone has those 3 minutes to speak, 3 minutes to justify their whole livelihood and everything. Instead, we go out on, we spend a whole day with them and let them show us everything. And they were able to open up a lot. Also food,
They didn't address the issue of the jetties and what it does as opposed to.
pretty
And
much.
it sounds like you touched their humanity. I mean, you connected the humanity. They communicated their emotional attachment to, it's not just a job, but these guys, that's how they grew up. That's their life.
It's a life, it is.
You also
Thank you
acknowledge,
so much, Emma, I appreciate it.
you also acknowledge the value of their life story.
Definitely.
Emma, on that line, tell us a little bit about what you are like the director, give us a little filmmaking 101. Are you have a camera crew, or do you do the camera, or do you directing? How much do you plan ahead of time, and do you do the editing? Tell us what you do in the filmmaking business.
Yeah, so with the types of films that I work on, it's a really small crew, and we're usually out in the fields because it's a lot of environmental stuff. And technically my role is a producer, but when you have a small crew, the producer is pretty much everything. So I do a lot of the shooting, the editing, the interviewing. And what happened is after I did Finding Common Ground, I had no idea what I was planning on doing with my life. And I started doing a documentary on duck hunting. I didn't even know it would be a documentary. I'd never duck hunted in my life. I just went out and started filming different duck hunters. And I was really fascinated by it because I never thought of hunting having any connection to conservation, which is what the documentary was all about. And it was very much of a oversight on my end, but I realized that so I'm from Minneapolis, and it's just this very kind of liberal bubble, and you think hunting, like you're like, that's just that's just extracting a resource, that's just people killing stuff. And so I realized there's a lot of people that didn't know anything about hunting, and people that grow up down here is just like, it's a rite of passage. And so many hunters down here know, they're like, yeah, hunting is conservation. But then if you ask them to really break down why or how, they really didn't know. So that kind of sparked the idea for this documentary that I started working on for maybe 2 years on my own. And then when I realized I just didn't know what I was doing, I partnered with Louisiana Public Broadcasting to finish it. And it came out almost 2 years ago now. It's weird to think about. And it's called In the Blind. And that one you'll have to message me if you want to watch it, and I will just send you a link, because it's not currently, because I'm not going to make you buy it from LPB for $25 for a DVD. And I'm happy to share that. But that is where I learned pretty much everything, because I got my first real camera for that. So I shot most of it and I edited most of it. And it took 3 years. I probably went on 50 duck hunts with people all over Louisiana. And I think I did have a trailer that I could show, but we don't really have time for that. So I'll just show you guys some pictures. But some of the things I thought it would be cool to share with you guys, some of the bigger takeaways that I learned connecting duck hunting to conservation. And a lot of it all came back to the same things that I learned while making Finding Common Ground, which was you have like finding these two sides that seemingly disagree with each other. You have hunters and non-hunters, you have pro-diversion, anti-diversion, and then finding that common ground, like what do we really want here? Like, we want the land to be here. We want to be able to continue on all of our traditions, all of these things, and we're fighting against each other it's just working against everyone. If we can work together, then we can get this synergy and maybe actually start to make some change. So with the duck hunting film, what I did, I also went out with non-hunters. I went out with, I don't know, you guys might know Katie Percy. She's with Audubon at Rockefeller. She's in there. And I thought it'd be really cool to have this ornithologist, non-hunter, go out there and say, well, I buy a duck stamp every year, she said, and all of my birding friends do, because we know where that money goes. And we know that that's just a great way to donate. So things like that, or like, Audubon and Ducks Unlimited would work together and create these marsh terracing projects and different there's all kinds of restoration projects. I kind of went off on a tangent. I forgot what I was talking about. I don't know, either way, it was a way to make a film where, the non-hunters realize that there's this huge, massive funding force from these hunters that they completely tend to overlook. Like, the federal duck stamp has raised over $1 billion since the 1930s. And then the Pittman-Robertson Act from 1935, that's raised over $7 billion. And that's just an 11% excise tax on guns and ammunition. And then I talked a lot about the, Teddy Roosevelt and the Migratory Bird Treaty, and just all of these things that hunters have done to set up this system of protection. There's that recent study that came out about what did it say? We've lost 3 billion birds since the 1970. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? I think
Yes, we know what you're talking about.
yeah, 3 billion, like
You
3
got it.
billion birds. But
Yeah.
what they found is that any waterfowl or wetland dependent bird species, they're actually the odd ones out that have been their population has been growing since. And it's pretty clear why, because you have this, it's from the hunters, and it's from all the money and the studies that go into them and the regulations. So I just thought all of that was so interesting. So that's what brought me to do the documentary on that one. And yes, and then after that, I've been with LPB since. I started working for them as a producer, and unfortunately, I'm not doing tons of nature stuff right now with LPB, but like I was telling y'all right when I hopped on, I'm starting to do a podcast. It's the first time I've done a podcast, but it's going to be a naturalist podcast with Dr. Bob and MA as the hosts, and I'm going to have 4 Loyola students, science students, working on it with me as well. I think it's going to be really cool. So I'm going to leave my email and everything up here. If anyone wants to contact me, I'm sure you guys all have plenty of episode ideas in mind, or places that we could go around here. We've got a lot around south of New Orleans and New Orleans. So we're going to need to spread our wings.
Emma, I'll put your email in the chat, and so they will be able to access it from there.
Sure. Okay, and I see a couple questions. For one, I'll show you guys some pictures because I did shoot a duck. I shot my first duck. It was a mallard, and I was in North Louisiana, so kind of near Catahoula Parish. I was terrified because for the first 2 years I didn't really want to. I wasn't sure if I wanted to actually shoot a duck. And then once I did, I really enjoyed it. So I've been hunting ever since. So these are, some of the people I've gone out with, really cute little guys there. This is the Duck Festival in Baton. So I went 2 years in a row. That's the trailer that you guys could look up online. This woman is my favorite interview in the documentary, Miss Albertine Kimball. She also is called the Duck Queen. And the movie covers a lot of the folk art as well. So there's a whole part on the decoy carving and on the call making. And then my favorite, you guys might also know Paul Link here. He's just the guru of duck banding. And that is something that I've continued to do since the documentary, as well as hunting. I go out banding with Paul probably 6 times a year. And do you guys know about duck banding? Probably. You put these little silver bracelets on, we try to catch hundreds of ducks. You bait them for a long time. You go out at 5 a.m. You sit in as still as you can for about 40 minutes and then shoot these rockets that make the nets go over, and then you jump in the water and band as many ducks as you can for science. And it's really fun. We also put on these telemetry devices onto them, and we're able to track migration patterns all over. Oop. Another awesome part of the movie was going out with all the college students. LSU actually uses In the Blind as part of their curriculum right now for the R&R students. And they take all of these kids who've never hunted before out hunting for the first time, just to give them that experience, which it's really not common. It's like, of course that happens in Louisiana of anywhere. Just another one filming. Oh yeah, here's me with some of my ducks. So, and that's the award with the, yeah. Oh, there we are. So if on Instagram, In the Blind documentary, not super active on it, but I do still post some stuff about that. And then there's my LPB email.
Oh, Emma, I put maybe your Gmail email. You might prefer them to use your LPB one. I'm sorry.
Actually, no, Gmail is totally, I use them both. So
Okay.
It does not matter.
Emma, since we have some time, can you please show us the trailer for the documentary?
Sure. It's yes. Oh wait, I have to share my screen again. So I kind of have it's the slightly longer one because I thought it's a little more informative. It's almost like a mini documentary.
There's a group of people who wake up before dawn. They read the weather and the land like a book. For months, they prepare. They teach their children, train their dogs, and often spend a small fortune. All of this to quietly watch the earth come to life and hopefully shoot a duck.
There's so much more to it than actual shooting of the birds.
You're noticing how the marsh wakes up, how it breathes, how the earth breathes.
There's nothing quite like it. Being out here during a sunrise, every time it's just breathtaking.
Just watching a group of birds fall into a hole and hearing the wings when they come over your head, it's like nothing else.
I like going out to P-Roll, all the wildlife, just a beautiful, tranquil place to be. Touched my heart so much. And duck hunting, shooting a duck is a plus, but the environment is the passion.
I do it because it's been like instilled in us forever. I mean, my dad did it, my grandfather did it, my great grandfather did it. But we still do it because we enjoy eating them, we enjoy cooking them. I enjoy watching my dog work. Oh, here comes that group by the camp. Here they come. Here they come right here. We're shooting birds that were in North Dakota yesterday. They just fly so far, so fast and get here. And all it takes is like preparation, preparing the habitat for them. And then overnight, you know, you can go from having nothing to having thousands of birds in the air, all because of hard work.
We're not just going to a market and buying it from a big chain. And so how is it, to me, how is that any different? In fact, we're still honoring our roots and our heritage by hunting and by putting the meat on the table that we've gotten ourselves.
Of course, you know, the Mississippi Flyway is one of 4 flyways, basically the highways in the sky down the continent that waterfowl use to migrate. And the Mississippi Flyway is really the most important, and that's where most of the birds come because it covers most of the key breeding areas and the largest amount of wintering grounds, which are here on the, well, in this country, in Louisiana and the Gulf Coast. The protein supply here was unbelievable. And people were making a living market hunting waterfowl.
In the beginning, there were literally clouds of ducks. Just this whole environment is different. And that's part of the charm of it.
Hunters have always been willing to contribute their resources, their money, their political activism to conservation issues.
The founders of the environmental movement in this country were all hunters and fishermen.
It was hunters who were kind of sounding alarms and recognizing that they were losing species, and that without protection and regulations on how many were hunted, that we would continue to see species go extinct.
We've lost a third of our coastal wetlands, one of the most important habitats for wintering ducks in the United States, not just the Mississippi Flyway.
You have to have these regulations, and the general public, or especially hunters, need to understand that and need to be part of that. We all have the same intentions, right? We want to have more waterfowl, we want to have better habitat, but there's a good way to do that, and it's working together, and it's not working against each other.
It's going to take a lot of money, probably more money than we have. But if we quit working together, then we're done. But working together, it's a way of life for me here. Why I live here. It's like a family.
Maybe you don't like hunting. Maybe you don't like guns. Maybe you don't think you like hunters, even though you've never tried to do any of it. But they're important for your clean air and water. And once they're gone, you'll have less of it.
Yeah. That was a long trailer.
Okay, thank you. I think that was wonderful. I'm glad that we had the opportunity to see that. Any more questions for Emma? Let's see, I'm looking at the chat.
Yeah, I can do the same thing with my binoculars.
I still appreciate all they've done, but I'm like, I don't have to shoot anything.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the best part was that I never really would experience otherwise. Well, I could, but I hadn't until then, is just getting out there so early and taking a boat all the way out into the middle of a marsh and then just sitting there as still as you possibly can and watching the earth come to life. It was so cool.
Let's see, Oscar has a question about, you mentioned TEK. What would you say to research scientists who want to balance their careers in traditional academic science with cultural, humanistic interest and the kinds of interests that you depict in your films? Looks like, in other words, what you're doing, combining the two, science and culture.
That's a good question. I feel like it's always a balance to try and find that. And part of it is just to always bring the community. I mean, I think what we do as naturalists is a huge part of it. Yes, there's the hard science there, but what we do is we go out and we observe. And the more time you just spend out there observing, it's like citizen science. How much citizen science contributes to science right now? I think just always consulting the people who spend the most time in a place, even if they're not your traditional scientist, always getting that input and trying to share it, because it's just becoming more and more, you hear TEK everywhere now, and it's becoming more accepted as science and more valued. So I think just always going out there and documenting the TEK as much as you can is really important. And that's what I want to try to do in all of the films that I do. It's definitely hard though. It's hard for scientists to take in information like that, because it kind of goes against what they were taught too. So it's something you need to actively think about. I don't know if that answered that question.
There's another question about your swamp tours. Are you still have your swamp tours available in Manchac?
We're doing them out there now. I just go time to time, usually once a week, or sorry, once a month. I'll try to go out there on the weekends. But the company is New Orleans Kayak Swamp Tours, and they're wonderful. They take a lot of tours out. Maybe we could talk sometime about doing a group outing too. I bet we could get a really good deal. Maybe get the Baton Rouge Naturalists out.
We would love that.
But I think I heard a lot of trees are down from the storm right now. That it's already such a fragile swamp, that area right between Maurepas and Pontchartrain. I haven't been out there since, but I need to. And so yeah, I would love anyone to please contact me anytime. It could be about the podcast, kayaking, any film stuff, anything with LPB.
That sounds great. Oh, we'll send you a lot of ideas. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah. I would love to come out. I would love to come out on some outings with the BR Master Naturalist too.
Sure, that'd be great.
Emma, hopefully we have a rendezvous soon. I love the rendezvous.
Emma, someone asked about what the name of the podcast is. Do you have that already?
The name of it is going to be The Southern Naturalist. We don't know when it's going to come out yet. We're going to record, I think we're going to do 10 episodes for our first season. We're in very early stages. We have our proposal. We're starting to put it out there, get some grants, get a little funding for it. We might do some, I think we might get some grants with, I don't know, maybe possibly I think Keep Louisiana Beautiful might be interested.
Is this going to be part of the Master Naturalists, the statewide?
Not technically yet. We're not positive, but it'll be very connected either way, since a lot of the episodes will be out on the naturalist trips. It's something that I think could really evolve as well, maybe into a TV show even. That's what I hope. It's definitely like a dream job.
Okay, well, thank you, Emma. We were going to enjoy having you in Baton Rouge, and we'll definitely keep you linked into the Baton Rouge Naturalist activities, and hope that you will be able to join us.
Please do. Thank you guys so much for having me. I hope you got something out of that. I know I was just rambling on, but yeah.
Very, very informative and interesting.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, and Emma, y'all have both of her emails. There was one at LPS and one at Gmail. And so you can email her with any other questions, or also, as she said, the link to In the Blind. Maybe rather than inundate you with a lot of those, maybe we could just have maybe if I email you, and then I can have the link rather than, well, I don't know, it would be better to come directly from you.
Yeah, so just
yeah, so they can email you.
Yeah,
I was just trying to save you from a lot of emails.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I'm fine with that. We're working on maybe getting it on a streaming service or something. I've been wanting to do that for a while, but it just hasn't happened yet. So I'm fine just sending it out just on Vimeo.
All right, thank you very much. And Colette or Catherine, can y'all remind us the next one I want to say is the end of October, Nature Notes?
Yes, it's October 27th, Wednesday the 27th. And we have Bob Jacobson. He's a hydrologist, and he's done a lot of research, worked with a lot of people throughout the state. And he's going to concentrate on our floodplain drainage issues. I've heard him speak before. He's going to be very informative.
Okay, all right. And so thank everybody. I know we had some of our other members from other chapters join us, and we're glad that you're able to do that.
Fun. I would love to come to more meetings with you guys.
All right, okay, thank you, everybody.
All right, thanks.
All right, good night.
Pleasure.
Bye. Nice to meet everyone.
Thank you, Emma.